everybody. Welcome to another episode of the podcast room. Listen, we are in our Nailed It Women's Conference. We are in day 2, and our pastor, Vivian Jacobs, blessed us so tremendously in the empowerment session. We're going to dig into all the topics that we discussed, myself and Kayla. But first, I'm going to pass it off to Pastor Jacobs. I want you to introduce yourself to the people.
Hi, everybody. As she said, I am Pastor Lady Vivian Jacobs. I'm honored to be here. I am a wife. I'm a wife to Bishop Brandon Jacobs Sr. Of New Zion Temple Church. I have 5 children. I am a mentor. I am a coach. I am an author, and I am a child of God. I'm a willing vessel that is willing and ready to be used by God in whatever capacity.
That's it. That's it. We dug into so many topics that prevent women from being restored. And one of the things that we really dug into was just remembering everything that God said about you. I know you have a bunch of different movements going on inside of your women's ministry, but the first thing I want to pose to you, that question, myself and Kayla, is how did you get to your yes in God?
I got to my yes in God. It was a process. It was a journey. It did not come quickly because I oftentimes tell this. I was becoming something that I had never become before. I was entering into a new place. And anytime you're entering into something new that I didn't really know a whole lot about it, it can be fearful.
Yeah.
And so I just really got to the place where I got tired of running from God. I got tired of saying yes with my lips, but then no with my actions.
Wow.
And then somebody actually had said something to me and it really hit home. They said, "How long are you going to allow women to die spiritually and drown where they are because you haven't said yes?"
Wow.
Because you haven't said yes and then also put the actions behind it. And so that was a wake up call to me, really making it plain to me, like, oh my goodness. And at the end of the day, I just wanted to please the Lord. And so I just really got to a place where it's like, Lord, I'm just trusting you. I'm in a place now where I'm saying yes. I'm allowing him to teach me the way. I do not know everything. I do still have moments where I get fearful and I still have to trust him. And I think it's a good fear. I think fear can be sometimes a good thing because it puts you in a place where you have to lean and depend on God. And that's what he wants from us. He doesn't want us to be in a place where we should have confidence, but not where we're overly confident, where we feel like we don't need God. Because I need him. I need him every hour, every step of the way. So yeah, it was really intentionality, me making the decision that I refused to stay in a place where I was not functioning in my call. I was not functioning in the lane that the Lord had called me to, because there was also a sense of unfulfillment in that place as well, because I knew I wasn't pleasing the Lord.
That's so good. I remember the conversation that I had with you prior to the conference, and I said, "How do you balance it all?" Because she's from the Midwest and I live on the East Coast, but there's so many lives, there's so many gems that she drops in her podcast, and I watch you guys on Sunday morning, and I'm just grateful for your yes, because you don't know how it's impacted just women on the
Wow.
other side of the country. And I'm like, okay, if she can hold down the job, if she can be married and have children, then I can too. What was your favorite part about it?
Ooh, it was a lot. My favorite part was the portion about forgiveness, and more so of self-forgiveness, right? Forgiving yourself. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in how people are treating us and how we treat others, but it's also your behavior shows of how you are viewing yourself, right? It shows in the way that you don't give yourself grace, and just being mindful of the different triggers that you have, things that can kind of trigger you into being in this dark place. So just giving yourself grace and forgiving yourself that God has already forgiven you, but now you're holding up his process because you're stuck and you're not forgiving yourself. So that really hit home for me.
Yeah.
I think my favorite takeaway, it was a few things. That grief moment.
Mm-hmm.
Grief is not about just losing someone, but sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
could grieve your own lifestyle. Somebody asked a question and said, "How do you kind of just
Mm-hmm.
divert away from sin because it looks appealing,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're in an area of stagnation, everybody out partying."
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, well, I want to be included, especially if you're dealing with rejection issues. But she said to kind of check the things that you're going through because that can feed your appetite. Because the truth of the matter is, the enemy knows what we like, he knows what we desire, he knows what's appealing to us. So that was really one of
Yeah.
my favorite takeaways from
Yeah.
today's conversation. What about yours, Lady V?
Um, it was a well-rounded conversation. I think that the all of what you all said, and then also the portion where we talked about hopelessness and faith,
Yeah.
and just the importance of holding fast to our faith, and knowing that in this thing called life, we're going to experience things. We're going to have trials. We're going to have tribulations. We're going to go through things. We're going to go through things that's going to test our faith, test our belief. And faith is not faith until faith has been tried. You can
Wow.
say you have faith all day, but if you've never been put in a situation where you have to have faith,
Mm-hmm.
like you have to believe God, you really don't know how much faith you have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes God will allow us to get into certain situations, even as we said earlier, to increase our faith, to strengthen our faith, and then also to give us a deeper revelation of who He is.
Yeah.
Because if I never had to have the faith to believe you to be a healer, and where I was sick, then I wouldn't know you to be a healer for
That's it.
myself.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would know from what my grandmother
Mm-hmm.
said. I would
Mm-hmm.
know from what people told me or
Mm-hmm.
what I read in the Bible, and all of that is good. But sometimes the Lord wants to give us that deeper revelation on a personal level.
Yeah.
And so we have to, know that if we're going through and we may be in a place of hopelessness, we're going through for a reason. And most times it's to give us a revelation of who God is so we could see Him in another light, so we can believe Him for ourselves, so that our faith can be strengthened. But it definitely will be tried.
It will be tried, but you will overcome it. There
Yep.
was so many gems dropped today. What would you say to the young woman watching this podcast? And we're gonna post different clips from today, so you guys make sure you're like, commenting, and sharing it. But what would you say to the young woman that's watching this podcast who wants to say yes to God but feels like she's stuck? And I know we discussed it
Hmm.
today, but just to let the outside audience
Yeah.
into everything that we kind of tackle through, what would you say to her if she feels like she's stuck in her season of despair and in
Yeah.
grief and self-rejection and just remembering the things that she went through as a child and the abuse?
Yeah.
What would you say to her? Pour her
I
back
would
out.
say continue to trust God. Continue to trust God. Continue on the journey. Sometimes it can be difficult. A lot of times it can be difficult when we give God a yes,
Yeah.
and then we have to make good on that yes. Because we get so used to saying empty words in church.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The pastor tells us to lift our hands and say, tell the Lord yes, and we tell the Lord yes, and then when we leave, we say no in our
Mm-hmm.
actions. And so I would say to just continue on your journey, continue to trust the Lord, continue to lean and depend on Him. You don't have to know every step. You will not know every answer. You will not always get it right. But if you keep God first and you continue to trust Him and make good on your yes, there is no good thing that He's going to withhold from you.
No good thing. That's
Yeah.
so good. And Kayla, any last thoughts from today?
I have a question. So, to the young lady that's watching this podcast, right? They want to give God a yes. They want to walk into who God has called them to be,
Mhm.
but they're struggling in identity and purpose. What are some different
Mm.
ways that they can
Yeah.
put themselves in a position where God can reveal their purpose and their identity?
Yeah, that's good. I actually discussed this a couple of years ago, and God has a way of causing the things that you struggle with to become your ministry.
That's it.
That's so
Good God.
good.
Because when I first married my husband, right now I have the Becoming Her movement, but many people probably forget. At first, I used to do a conference called Identity. I Know Who I Am. And that was when the Lord revealed to me who I was. And so it was in me to have this conference so that the Lord could, so I could help other people know who they were in God. And so, you know, it was, and when you look back over it, it's like, God is so strategic.
He is.
First, he had to show me my identity. Then I could become, you know, then I could walk in my purpose. But I think you first have to know who you are in Christ before you can walk in your purpose, before you can, you know, walk into the things that he would have for you, because you have to know that your identity is in him, that your identity is solid in him. And you find that through spending time in his presence, spending time in his word, you know, and then they have like different exercises that can help you figure out what your purpose is. And, you know, all of that stuff, I think it has good intent, but I think a lot of that really just comes with spending time with the Lord. He's the only one that can reveal to you what he created you for. That's just like an iron that comes with a booklet to tell you how to use it. The maker gave you the booklet to tell you how to use the iron. So the only way you're going to know how to be used in the right way and to walk in your purpose, you got to go to your maker. You got to go to God.
That's so good.
And he'll reveal that to you. And it can be a process. It can be a journey, you know, and oftentimes it'll come by trial and error. You'll try one thing and figure out maybe this ain't for me, you know, but it's like, I'm pressing and I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to know. But number one, I have to spend time in the presence of the Lord. I can't rely on other people to tell me what God has called me to be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of it comes through spending time in his word, in his presence, and just becoming active in ministry, doing something that you love to do. What's something that has been in you since childhood that you may have forgotten about, but it's in you. Like for me, I know that I'm a natural born leader. Like when I talk back to my friends, they'll tell me like how I was so bossy and how I was a leader when we were younger. And I didn't even really believe it. They're like, you have always been like this. Like it's just being magnified in another way. But I try not to be bossy now. But it's just something that was in me. You know, it's innate. It's a natural ability that I was born with that I didn't ask for and I didn't even know. But if you never take a step back to look and see what was it that I love to do, what was it that came naturally to me, sometimes that can help you to get on the right track as well with your purpose.
That's really good. We were talking to Pastor Hudson yesterday evening, just recapping the service, and we posed a question, just two young women coming up in ministry, like what would be, I guess, just advice to us just to keep going. And one of the gems that she dropped, she said, do it. Even if you have to do it afraid, just do it. So we want to pose that question to you. What would be, I guess, just something, speaking to the young woman in ministry, like she's doing it. She may not have a role model. She don't know what she's doing. She just know that God called her to this position. She doesn't want to disappoint God, right? Yeah. So what would you tell her to just keep going? Like, yes, she's in the presence of God. Yes, she's praying, but sometimes people will be people and they'll make the assignment hard. They'll make you question the purpose. So what would you tell her?
I mean, I would have to echo the same words along with a couple of other things, but I would definitely say continue to do it. You have to be delivered from the people, which, you know, that's a difficult thing because you work with people, and let's just be honest, sometimes you look for accolades, or it makes you feel good when somebody say you did good. Yeah. So not that it's something that you should crave, and it definitely shouldn't be something that you need to continue to do what you're doing. Yeah. So, but I think you have to become secure in knowing that the Lord has called you, in knowing that this is what he called you to. And then also you have to remind yourself of your why. And this is what helps me to keep going. When I want to quit, When I get discouraged because of the people, I have to remind myself of why I'm doing it in the first place. And like you said, I'm doing it to give glory to God, and then also because I want to please him. I want to hear him say, well
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
I don't want to be found disobedient
Yeah.
because of my fear and because I'm not, doing the things that he would have me to do. Keep going. If nothing else, keep going so that you can please the Lord, so that you can hear him say, well done. Well done, my good and faithful servant.
Yeah.
You've been faithful over the few. Come on up a little higher so I can make you ruler over the many. And so that's what helps me. I oftentimes try to remind myself of my why. And that gives me the fuel that I need, because sometimes we can get confused. You can get distracted, I should say, on the journey, but you just have to constantly remind yourself of your why. I'm not doing it for the people. I'm doing it so that God could be glorified.
Yeah.
It will bless the people in the process, but that's not why I'm doing it.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. Listen, we're going to wrap it up. We want to eat. We want to feed Pastor Vivian Jacobs, okay, before she goes back home. But again, thank you so much for just saying yes to the invite and for everything that you pour on today. I'm so, so glad you came. We've been trying to get
Thank you so much.
Wow.
I'm honored that you all even thought of me. I'm honored, and thank you all so much for the invitation. I've been blessed being here. So thank you so much. I'm grateful for the connection. I'm grateful for the fellowship. I do not take it lightly. Thank you for trusting the God in me. And I mean that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, we're closing off day 2. We're going to celebrate. We're going to eat. We got a massage therapist. I'm going to get this kink.
Ooh, that sounds nice.
But thank you guys so much for logging on to day 2 of our Nailed It Conference, The Restored Woman. We'll see you guys at our next podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. Share this with another woman. I guarantee they will be blessed. See you later.